So imagine it is your big day. You've trained for this, you prepared for this. Today is the game, the race, the meet, I don't know, it's the competition that you've been preparing for quite a while. And you're so excited. You're so filled with anticipation, and the crowd is in a good mood, and you're really in it. And whatever you do it, and then it happens. You make a mistake. You didn't catch the ball, or you slipped, or whatever it is that you did. It was that critical mistake that made you lose, that made you not get the result that you wanted to get from this event. And as you leave the field, or the pool, or wherever you are, what goes through your mind right now? And that's a very important question. So one way it could go is you beat yourself up, you are really upset, obviously you're upset, and you start talking bad to yourself. You start talking down on yourself, and you go like, I'm not made for this. Like, of course I had to mess up. It's so typically me to do that and to not succeed. What was I thinking that if I could win this, like, who am I? Who do I think I am? That's one way of dealing with it. And then there's another way, which is also upset. You're also frustrated that you didn't win and you didn't perform as you wanted to. And at the same time, you immediately start thinking, okay, but what went wrong? What happened? How exactly did it happen? What happened before that? What was I thinking? How was I feeling? So you start analyzing the situation, and over time, you eventually develop strategies to make sure that it won't happen again, right? So you train specifically for that thing, or you prepare a specific way so that, that circumstance doesn't arise anymore, or whatever caused you to mess up, you just do whatever you can to not have it happen again in the future. So basically you come out stronger in the long run. And I mean, from the way that I portrayed it here, I think it's obvious that you want to be the second person. You don't want to be the first person. But I can tell you, we are the first person in some areas of our lives, and we are the second person in other areas of our lives. But obviously the goal is to learn from our mistakes, understand how we can use that. Obviously we can be upset, obviously we can be frustrated. I mean, that's totally fine. It's just a question of, do I use that then against me, or do I use it for me? And that's exactly what today's episode is going to be about. We're going to talk about that second mindset and how we can do more of it, and how it works, and what it even is. And I'm really excited to get started with you. Hi, hello, and welcome to the Healthy and Aligned podcast. I am your host. My name is Lisa. I am a mindset coach. I'm an EFT tapping coach. And in this podcast, we basically talk about all things mindset towards success, towards peak performance, towards living the life of the version of ourselves that we dream of being, right? We all have this idea of who we could be and who we really desire to be. And in this podcast, I talk about how we can actually become that person that lives that life. So today it is all about growth mindset. That's that second person, or that second way of thinking that I mentioned in the introduction. And we're gonna, take a closer look of what it actually means to have a growth mindset. What was the other mindset that I talked about? What is the science behind it? And I'm also going to provide you with some very actionable tactics and strategies to start growing your own growth mindset and developing your own growth mindset in daily life, and especially in those areas where you currently don't really have that. And that's it. I'm so excited that you're here, and let's get going. So what even is a growth mindset? The term itself, or the concept itself, was made popular by a Stanford professor or researcher named Dr. Carol Dweck. And she wrote the book about growth mindset, which is called Mindset, the New Psychology of Success. And in this book, she dives deep into how our mindset and the beliefs that we have shape the way that we behave, shape the way that we show up in the world, how we deal with difficulties, and how we grow, right? And she discovered that there are mainly two different types of mindsets. One is a growth mindset, and the other one is a fixed mindset. And the first example that I said, I'm not cut out to be this person, that's just not who I am, that is a fixed mindset. It's the belief that our abilities, our intelligence, they are fixed. They are what they are, and we kind of have to live with that, and there's not much we can do about it. There's not, no effort is going to change my intelligence or is going to change my abilities, right? And on the opposite, we have the growth mindset that has or is under the belief that if I put enough effort in it, if I, give it my all, I can get better at anything. I can get there. I am not just who I am, but I decide who I am, and I create that person with where I put my energy and where I put my efforts. So basically, with a growth mindset, you decide who you are. You decide what you're good at. You decide which path you take, because you know that if you really follow up on it, and if you, put your little butt down and work on it, you'll get there eventually. You kind of have to. And there is a third mindset that I just want to mention here. It's nothing that I'm going to dive deeper into, but it's been around for a while, and it's a victim mindset, because it's also sometimes mentioned in this context. And the way I see it, a victim mindset is sort of a subset of a fixed mindset, or a version of that, because instead of thinking that I am just who I am and that's it and I have to live with it, people who have a victim mindset believe that they are fixed by their environment. Like, they can only be what their environment allows them to be, whether that is people or circumstance, culture, whatever it is. So again, they are fixed in who they are. It's kind of like predefined by their environment and by external forces. So again, they cannot just become who they want to be and, put in a lot of effort and that's that, and they're going to be, successful at a specific thing, but they are fixed within their circumstance and their environment. So I'm not going to talk much about the victim mindset, because as a subset of a fixed mindset, I think it's kind of included in everything that I say about a fixed mindset. I just wanted to kind of clarify that here, because it does come up once in a while in this context. So now, why is it so important for us to look at whether we have a growth mindset or a fixed mindset, or what our mindset is, looks like? Why is that even so important? The thing is, when I say mindset, what that means is that a mindset is basically built by a set of beliefs that we have and that we nurture. It's beliefs and principles, I want to say. And that, a collection of beliefs that we have about ourselves, about the world around us, about other people, that's what makes up our mindset. And beliefs are basically practiced thoughts. So it's a thought that we think over and over and over again. So for me, for a long time, it was, for example, I'm not good with numbers. Math is so hard for me. I cannot do calculations inside my head. I would always need a calculator. I don't know, numbers and me, we're just not, we're not besties. And from early on, I would tell myself that me and numbers, So whether it was in school and I had algebra, I hated it. And I was like, but I cannot do it. I don't know how to do it. I will never learn it. It's just not who I am. And then even later in my corporate career, whenever there was a budget to be done, or some forecasts or whatever, I'd be like shying away and I'd be super nervous, thinking, oh no, now I have to do numbers and looking back, I think it's ridiculous, but it is a belief that I really like hammered into my brain over and over again. That thought that I am not good with numbers is what I repeated over and over again, to the point where it became a belief I had about myself. And once we have those beliefs, our brain thinks that is the truth. That is our reality, and it will start looking for proof that this is really true. So I would, start being overwhelmed as soon as I had to do any calculations. I would start creating my own proof by messing up those calculations, by taking forever to do it, by including, unconsciously of course, but making small mistakes in it. And, I would forget how to do specific things. So I created a reality, I created an environment for myself that proved that me and numbers are a no-go. And that is what we do. The brain will always look for proof for whatever beliefs we have. And now, when we look at a fixed mindset or at a growth mindset, with that knowledge that we'll always look for proof that what we believe is true, both of them are true. So whether I believe I just am who I am, I'll make sure that that is true. Or whether I believe, oh no, if I put effort in, if I really start working on it, that is also true for us. And now it's up to you to think about that. Like, what truth do you want to have in your life? Do you want the truth that just accepts the status quo as the maximum of what you're capable of? And you just have to kind of deal with it and, live a life that makes your current way of living as pleasurable, as easy, and as convenient as possible? Or do you want to adopt a mindset that allows you to grow into another person, to become somebody else if you decide to do so? If you love your life, there's no need to change it. Stick to what you enjoy, of course. And there might be things that you dream of doing, that you dream of experiencing, that are currently not in the books for you unless you learn a specific skill or unless you really put yourself out there and gain experience in that field. So basically what I'm telling you is up to you who you want to be. And that in and of itself, now that I said it out loud, is already a growth mindset. But okay. I can give you another example from my own life. So not only was I never good with numbers, I was also never a very athletic person. So in school, I had a couple of difficult sports teachers. I don't know how you call them. Physical education, PE teachers, right? And I was never in a sports club. I was never really physically active. I'm not from a athletic family, right? So that was never a high priority for us. And then I would be around kids who would go to sports clubs several times a week and, would really train and move their bodies a lot. And obviously I wasn't as athletic as they were. Makes total sense, right? But that kind of translated into me believing that I'm just not the athletic type and that I am not strong, I am not fast, I don't have, enough conditioning, I get exhausted really quickly. And over time, again, I repeated that thought so many times and I found proof in my environment, that I wasn't as fast as my classmates or I wasn't as strong as somebody else. That I really confirmed that for myself and I really was convinced that I am not an athletic person. And that also, to be honest, so I'm turning 39 soon, for the bigger part of my life, that was one of my beliefs. And even though I always did some type of sports, never really with the focus to be more athletic. It was always but I have to move my body kind of thing. I want to be healthy, so I better move. and not, I want to do sports. I want to, feel good in my body. I want to move my body. I want to push, the boundaries of my physical body. And it's only been recently, I would say like the last year, half a year, that I have actively worked towards that. And trust me, there's been a lot of inner work happening to remove that belief, to replace that belief. And now I am very certain that I'm an athletic person. Like, I just never used that part of me. I just never trained that part of me. And now I'm running regularly. I started to do strength workouts. And while I still have my moments here and there where I kind of fall back into that old fixed mindset, thinking like, see, I told you this was exhausting and you just not made up for it and cut out for it, I understand now that that is just simply not true. And by believing that I am an athlete and that I have an athletic body that can do like physical activity, like sports, I am slowly gathering evidence that proves myself right? So my regular running now is for an hour. I could have never, ever ran for an hour while I was still in that old mindset. And it has little to do with my actual physical capabilities. It is really the mindset that was holding me back. I would never allow myself to push myself enough to do that. So I hope these examples kind of like demonstrate how much our mindset influences our behavior, influences how we look at challenges, how we look at learning, how we look at maybe overcoming adversity. And if you believe that if you push through, if you work hard on it, if you challenge yourself, you can get somewhere else, it's much easier to actually do that. If you believe that challenges are just a sign from the universe that this is not for you and you're not the right person to do it, you're not going to push yourself through it, right? So you're not going to grow that way. You're not going to learn in that area where you don't push yourself. And honestly, as I said earlier in the beginning, we all have areas in our lives where we operate with a fixed mindset and we have areas where we operate with a growth mindset. The question is just, what do you do the majority of the time, to be honest? So, your general overwhelming mindset that you have in daily life, is that rather a fixed mindset or is that rather a growth mindset? That makes a huge difference. And then it's also interesting for us to maybe take a moment and look at the specific areas in our lives where we actually are not moving forward, where we are kind of idle, where nothing is happening and we just simply accepted that this is who we are and that's what we do. And it's very interesting to look at it. And it could be in your social environment. It could be you as a friend, are you a good friend? Are you a person who has like a social circle and a community and it is how you want it to be? Or did you just accept that, well, yeah, friendships are usually hard for you? Or romantic partnerships. But it could also be specific areas in, for example, a sport that you do. Like, do you accept that you're really fast, but you just mess up the start? The start is not your strong suit, but you're really good at the finish. Maybe that's not true. Maybe that's just something that has happened in the past, and based on that, maybe someone told you that's what it is, and you kind of started to repeat that thought again and again and again, that now you believe you're a super strong finisher and just mediocre starter. It could be things like that. It could be, so I recently talked with a professional climber, and there are specific holds on a boulder wall or on a lead wall, and some are easier for specific climbers than others. And it could be that you tell yourself, well, I'm just not really good at, a specific type of hold on the wall. But if the other one comes, I'm the best at it. Again, that might be a fixed mindset or like a belief that you created for yourself that you will not be better at a specific thing, and you just accept as it is. And those are like detailed things, but it could also be, like I said earlier, bigger things from my own experience, like I hate numbers, or I'm just not good at sports, I'd rather not do it. And the thing is, especially that belief that I'm not athletic, that I'm not strong, if I look back, it really saddens me because there are so many experiences, so many like little adventures in my life that I did not do because I believed I was probably not physically up to the task. I would not be strong enough. Like hikes I didn't go on, or swims I didn't do, or like I remember like that I was invited to like a boat ride, you know, where I had to like paddle and things like that. And no, the other people that went on that trip, they were not super athletic. They were not like bodybuilders or something. You know, I would have been fine, I'm pretty sure. But that belief that I would just, you know, fail and not be good at it and be exhausted and embarrass myself and feel bad about myself and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, I just didn't do it. I said, no, thank you. It's not for me. That's not who I am. And looking back, it makes me really sad. So I encourage you to think about that. Think about which areas in your life you are maybe doing that, whether it is in a detail, like maybe a specific thing that you don't dare to cook because it seems so difficult and you're just not a good chef, so you rather go with pasta and pesto or something. Or it could be, you know, an entire field altogether that you don't do, but you've always been kind of interested in. And I think that last sentence, like you've always been kind of interested in, we don't have to do everything, right? We don't have to be good at everything. It like be careful with the things that you choose. Don't overwhelm yourself. Don't, you know, overburden yourself with expectations, thinking like whatever you touch turns into gold if you just work hard enough for it. Because why would you? You know, like really pick the things that are important to you, that bring you joy, that you dream about, that you have big desires around. And then that's where you can go full force in, you know, and really become that person who you want to be. And in general, I mean, if you want to be good at something, you kind of have to have a growth mindset. And if we talk about people in corporate who want to go further in their career, and especially when we talk about athletic feats or athletes, as an athlete, you continuously challenge yourself. You have to, right? If you want to get better, you have to challenge your abilities, you have to challenge your mind, you have to challenge your muscles, your flexibility, whatever it is. And not having a growth mindset in that context is going to kill you. It's not, you know, you're not going to get better. You're not going to improve. It's going to be so much more difficult for you to actually become the athlete that you want to be. So especially in, you know, the sports industry, I would really recommend thinking more and being more intentional about the mindset that you have. Now let's talk a little bit about the science behind it, because this is not just a motivational thing, like, you know, believe that you can be it and do it, and you can if you just, you know, follow your dreams, da, 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 da. As good as that is and as fun as that is, there is the science behind it. Something is happening in your brain when you train, when you repeat things, and it's called neuroplasticity. So neuroplasticity is what we call the process in your brain that strengthens specific neurological pathways. So basically what happens is when we do something, when we think, like any second, any millisecond in this life, our brain is firing, you know, impulses from one synapses to another, right? So we have continuously fireworks in our brains, and those neurons that fire, that impulse, I'm going to call it, from one to the other is what makes us do a specific thing. And there is this saying that is called what fires together wires together, and that basically means that the more often two of these neurons talk to each other, the stronger the pathway between them gets. So if we just do something once, if we say something once, or, try something out or experiment, the pathway is very weak. It's just like a very thin line, basically. And the more we do it, the more we repeat it, the stronger this pathway gets. And stronger pathways means that the communication between those neurons is easier and is faster and is more efficient, more reliable. So what we want is strong neurological pathways for the things that we want to get better at. And that's why repetition and training is so important. I mean, stupid basic things like writing. When you learn how to write, it was so hard in the beginning, and your letters looked all crooked, and like you would maybe mirror them, or it wasn't easy for you. And the more you did it, the more you wrote, and the more you practice your alphabet, the easier it got, to the point that today, when you pick up a pen and you want to write down, you don't consciously think about how to write an A or how to write an F. You just know. You don't, it just happens. And that's because those pathways that send the information from your brain to your hand on how to write an F are so strong that it's like as efficient as it could get. And the same happens with any other thing that we do. And that is also sort of a proof, to be honest, for the growth mindset, because the growth mindset, again, says that if you practice, if you put the work in, you'll get better at it. You'll get good at it. And the more and the harder you work on it, the easier it'll get. So if that is true, it kind of kills the notion that I just am who I am and that's it. I have to accept that. And I'm just not good with numbers. That's it. So I think it's super fascinating to see how the brain works in that way. And it's always a very good reminder also for myself, because I just expect myself to be good at something immediately. And then I get frustrated if I'm not. And I have to kind of remember okay, give your brain the chance to actually be good at it. If it's not similar to anything that I've done before, how am I supposed to be good at it, right? And I feel like it's very important for ourselves to also give our brain some grace, and allow it to grow into that person through practice and through repetition. So again, in athletics, that's why we train. That's why we practice. So I remember I was watching, I think it was the Netflix documentary Receiver, and they said that you practice it so often in training that when it happens in the game, you don't have to think about it. It's like your subconscious knows exactly what to do. There is muscle memory, because there are so many other things happening on game day that you don't want to think, okay, how exactly did I need to run? Where do I put my arm? Which foot do I put my weight on? And all of these things that those receivers have to pay attention to. You want it to be so ingrained in your system that you don't have to think about it in the moment when it counts. And that's why you repeat it over and over and over and over and over again in practice. And I thought that was a very good example of how neuroplasticity actually works. And actually, in this context, I also remember quarterback. I'm into American football. So I also watched the Netflix documentary Quarterback. And I remember Patrick Mahomes, the quarterback of Kansas City Chiefs, practicing things in high speed so often that when he would do it in normal speed during a game, it felt slow to him. And he would have all the time to consider everything else and be in the moment and, make quick split-second decisions and stuff like that. But it felt like everything was slowed down because he trains it at higher speed. And again, I think that is a beautiful example of neuroplasticity at work in high-performance athletes. And we can take that concept to anything. We can we can use that concept in any circumstance, in any skill or ability, competence that you want to develop. So let's learn from these guys. They are the best for a reason. And that kind of brings me to the activities or strategies or tactical moves that we can do to practice our own growth mindset and make sure that we stay within that mindset and not intentional or unintentionally hold ourselves back through a fixed mindset in a specific area. And I always believe that the first step is awareness. So I really recommend that you start observing your thoughts. Observe your thoughts like whenever they come to you in whatever context. If you have a specific goal in mind, let's say you have a specific routine in mind, every time you think about that routine, every time something comes up about it, pay special attention. What exactly is it that you are thinking about? What comes up when you practice that routine? How do you feel about it? What are your thoughts during? What are your thoughts after? If you messed up, how do you react to it? Like, be very, very aware of your thoughts around it, because again, repeated thoughts turn into beliefs, and beliefs is what we are working on proving right. So you want to make sure that you prove the right beliefs right. What a sentence. Then another thing that you can do, so once you know sort of where your thoughts are, what beliefs you have, there are different things you can do. One thing is to make sure that you always challenge yourself. Make sure that you always push yourself, do the next step, go the next level, do it a bit faster like Patrick Mahomes, or increase your repetitions for a specific activity to make sure that you are continuously challenged. Because when we challenge ourselves, that's when we grow. That's when we do something differently than we've done before. That's how we can become better at something. Because if we do it the same way all the time, same intensity, same environment, same circumstance, we eventually will idle because we're really good at the thing, and that's that, but we want to get better. So we have to move ourselves outside our comfort zone. And also, if we're good outside the comfort zone, imagine how brilliant we are within the comfort zone. Just, as a side note. And when we do that, when we challenge ourselves, when we push outside the comfort zone, there will inevitably be setbacks. We will not be great at everything first try. That is just the most natural thing to do. Again, because the neural pathways are not as strong. So understanding that and reframing setbacks, reframing failure in your mind as, oh, I am actually learning something. Let me analyze what went wrong. Let me sure I practice exactly that thing. Let me sure I practice or prepare for exactly that moment where I didn't succeed this time. So instead of feeling that failure and setbacks are the be all end all and just to prove that you're not made for this, take it as something to learn from. And I know it is easier said than done. And it is so okay to be frustrated. It's so okay to be upset if you've, prepared for something and it doesn't work out the way you wanted. Sure, but don't stay there. Like, give yourself the time to be upset and frustrated and then move on. Take it, learn from it, and come out stronger at the other end. And if it helps you, because it does help me, just picture your brain building these streets, building these pathways between different neurons. And how, by doing it again and again and again, it will become more reliable and better and more efficient and faster and all of these beautiful things that we want. What else? Yes, feedback. Seek feedback, because it is such an important input to become better. Sometimes we don't see the forest for the trees, right? Because we've been so inside this whole thing that we've been training for, that we've been working on, that we've been preparing for, that we can't even see anymore what else we could do, or how we could do things differently, or where there is a lever to change. There is a reason why even the best athletes on this planet, even the best CEOs, the best entrepreneurs, like the most successful people have coaches. And the more successful they get, the more specific their coaches are, right? So you will, if you look at the golfers, they have specific coaches for specific swings. They don't just have that one coach. They have like 5 coaches, and they also have a mental coach, and they have a warm-up coach, and they have the more successful you want to be, the more detailed you have to look at specific things. Because in the end, once you reach a specific level, the success is in those 1% changes. And getting someone else who knows what they're doing to take a very close look at it and to give you very specific feedback can then help you to grow, can then help you to go further, and then, practice that new pathway in your brain that you haven't really been focusing on because you were so obsessed about this other thing, So seeking feedback, getting help, getting outside perspective is highly recommended for you to get better. And if you are in a fixed mindset, you're not going to accept that feedback. It feels like a feedback is personal because you do what you can and you are who you are. So if you say, I'm not doing something right, basically you are criticizing me as a person. However, if you have a growth mindset, if you embrace that idea that you could become whoever you want when you put your energy and your effort to it, feedback is just another piece of information for you to use. It has nothing to do with you as a person. It just helps you to become another version of yourself. That's that. So feedback, coaching is really important for people with a growth mindset to grow. For people with a growth mindset who have goals in their life, let me put it that way. So yeah, and that brings me to that point. Have goals. Look at your life, look at the things where you feel like you want to change, you want to be better, you want to be different, and set yourself goals in those areas. And think about the person you want to be in that area and use that as your goal, because that gives you something to work towards, something to obsess over, in the most beautiful way of obsession. To practice, to repeat, to get better at, and it gives you a direction, instead of just changing who you are, change specifically, change with intention and with focus. And I truly believe that this whole talk about growth mindset, about neuroplasticity, you will hear me talk about this so much more because it is so fundamental. If we want to live the life that we dream of, we need to have the right mindset to get there. And having a fixed mindset, being stuck in the status quo, it's not going to get us anywhere. It's holding us back. So if we want to improve in a sustainable manner, in a way that is healthy, in a way that allows us to enjoy the process as well, having a growth mindset is the way to go. It's the cornerstone of it. So I recommend that you check in with your thoughts, review your beliefs. Like, how do you think? What are the thoughts coming up when you mess something up? Or how are the thoughts, or what are the thoughts when you do something well? How do you think about this? Do you think, yeah, well, obviously I did it well because that's who I am and that's the thing I'm good at? Or do you think, yeah, I worked so hard for it. I'm so proud of myself that I did that I achieved this, that I was successful at this. And I really honed in on the details of it. And there you are. And you get to celebrate your success and not just take it for granted. I think having this awareness of our thoughts, of our beliefs, is the key in the end to work on our mindset and to develop and grow within our beliefs, and allow us to slowly start reframing our thoughts and reframing our beliefs and replacing them with something that is more serving rather than something that is fixed and stagnant. And I guess the last recommendation I have for you in terms of like activity is, I said it earlier, challenge yourself regularly. Get used to the idea of doing things that are outside your comfort zone. Because again, that bravery that is connected with that is something that you can train in your brain. It's a muscle you can train, and it'll make it easier over time because you are building those strong neural pathways in your brain that allow you to be maybe even more courageous next time, be more brave, and allow yourself to grow in different directions that allow you to become a bigger person, that allow you to see the world with different eyes. So regular activities outside your comfort zone are the way to go to practice that growth mindset idea and to practice your own ability to dare, basically, an ability to be brave. And that is the end of this episode. That's the end of this podcast today. If you gained any insight at all from this, if you thought that was interesting, please make sure that you rate this podcast. It helps me out a ton because it will be recommended to more people in the future on those platforms. You know how these algorithms work. So if you thought this was valuable to you, just let me know by giving me a rating on this podcast. And next week, we will look at the fear of failure, what it is, what it really is, and how we can overcome it. So I'm really excited about sharing that episode with you, sharing those thoughts with you. And until then, I wish you a beautiful rest of your day.